Hi guys, Coach Christo here. I'm here with Sam from Tomorrow's Goalkeeper TikTok page, and we're going to do a little series, short podcast episodes, responding to questions from goalkeepers. I actually just posted a video the other day talking about how goalkeeper is, in my opinion, the hardest position to play, and obviously, physically and technically, it can be very difficult. But the biggest thing for me is that there's such an incredible amount of pressure on you when you play goalkeeper. Any mistake can lead to a goal. And also that at times it can feel like a very isolating position because, not every player understands what it takes to be a goalkeeper. And I've seen a lot of players, point fingers at goalkeepers for mistakes when maybe it's not exactly their fault. I'm sure Sam, has experienced a lot of this stuff. I'm lucky I don't play as a goalkeeper, but obviously, I've worked with a lot of goalkeepers and played with some really, really great goalkeepers. So yeah, we're going to hop right in. Sam is going to read out the question that he got, and then we're going to, go through what we would do in this player's situation.
Cheers, thank you very much. Oh, what a great intro. I need to get up to that kind of speed. So I got a message from a young keeper. I won't mention his name because obviously he sent it to me in confidence, but the messages say, I messed up in a big game the other week. I came out too late and they went around me. The other team was laughing at me and my team said nothing. Makes me want to give up goalkeeping.
Yeah, so obviously, really, really tough situation. And I'm sure we've all had games that that didn't go well, and moments that didn't go well. I'm sure you can relate to his situation.
100%. I very similar to him. I made a massive error once in a cup final, and it did haunt me for quite a while. But it's something that actually did help down the road because I did make another error in a cup final 2 years later, and I just shook it off and had a good game after that. So
yeah. I mean, it's all about building and improving on that. And then also I tell this little story to players who think that or they make one big mistake and they kind of let it get to them. Is one of the former teammates that I had that I respected more than he's up there, for one of the best teammates that I've ever played with, was a goalkeeper. And he made a massive mistake. The Robinson against Croatia,
unfortunately I do.
Miss hit. Yeah. It was almost exactly like that. Except that the ball didn't go into the goal afterwards. An attacker just ran onto it and then finished it. But he had come out to clear the ball, completely missed it, went right over his foot. And I remember because he was one of the most upbeat and just lively people on the team. And I remember in the locker room afterwards, you wouldn't have known that he made such a big mistake and cost us a game because he was just being himself. And I talked to him later about it, and he was like, it's one mistake. All of us are going to have, bad mistakes. All of us are going to miss chances or fumble saves or whatever, but you're not better or worse after that mistake. You're the same person. You're the same player, unless you let it change you, right? So if you get in your head, you're like, oh my God, I made one big mistake, I'm a bad keeper, then you are going to be a bad keeper going forward. But if you just, shake it off and you say, look, everyone makes mistakes, time to move on. I'm sure you can go on YouTube and type in, Gianluigi Buffon errors or something. Yeah, exactly. What if you had that player for if you could talk to them afterwards, or if you had let's say a session with them, maybe a private session with them afterwards, is there anything that you do, specifically?
I think there'd be two main points I would want to touch on. First would be obviously the mental side. And again, it's very easy to say this, but everybody will have those mistakes. Everybody has those errors in their game. Nobody's perfect. Cristiano Ronaldo the other weekend literally just skied one from 3 yards. So you would never expect him to do it. The difference is for goalkeepers is when I know you touched on it already, if we make a mistake as a goalkeeper, it more often leads to a big error. So it could be a goal or like a blooper highlight kind of thing. But where, let's say, if a right back miscontrols a pass and goes out for a throw, and nobody really remembers that at the end of the game. So I think I just go to them and say, as hard as it is right now, errors are always going to happen, and we have to, instead of just hoping that they never happen, when they do happen, we need to take them and actually use it to improve ourselves. Like I said a second ago, I did do a massive error in a cup final. When I was younger, I wasn't very confident in my goal kicks. And so the ball came rolling over the top of my defense. So leave it, I got it. It was bouncing. And it actually took a little like bounce further than I thought. So I'm sprinting all the way to go keep it in. I get over there, but with the momentum of when I caught it, if I'd gone out, I would have taken it out for a corner. So I kind of push it back into play, thinking I can go get it afterwards. A striker comes barreling in, takes the ball and literally knocks it into the back of the net. I was 11, 12 at the time. Never had to happen. Most people would have just let it go out for a goal kick and then just go from there. But because I was so petrified about goal kicks, and this is another thing that I want to talk about at some point, because so many people have struggled with goal kicks. I made a massive error, and we ended up actually losing that game by that goal. But then 2 years later, I almost had a redeeming factor when I came out for a cross. It was a corner, came out for a cross, completely missed it. It went into the goal from the corner. Yeah. But I reset and I went on to save 2 penalties in the shootout. So it's just like these, it sounds so cliche, but these moments are there to show us that these things happen. And everybody, no matter how good a goalkeeper you are, you will make a mistake. Every great player will make a mistake. And instead of now thinking, I'm a terrible goalkeeper, it's again much easier said than done, but you have to learn from it and then go forward and use it to fuel you instead.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like some things that obviously, you know, this goalkeeper was also stressed. Like, not only did he make a mistake, but he saw like opponents laughing at him. His team wasn't being very supportive, which, you know, obviously if I was a coach, I would be on them. Like, you know, I would be on them very, very quickly about that. Because, you know, you're a team, and I'm sure, you know, every player made mistakes in that game. It just happens that his is the one that ended up costing the game, but it could have been anyone, right? But it does usually end up being the goalkeeper. And we remember, I feel like you'll be much more angry with a goalkeeper for making a mistake that leads to you guys conceding a goal than you will even for like a striker missing an opportunity. Because I think that's just kind of how the human mind works, that like, you know, it's essentially like the same thing, right? Like missing an open goal versus like conceding a very bad goal. You know, it's like plus or minus one, right? But we think about like that -1 is worse. Like, oh, we could have had a goal, but we didn't. Okay, it's all right. We conceded a goal that we shouldn't have. Come on. I think that's a very human thing. So, you know, it can be tough at times. And, you know, I'm not saying I was always the perfect teammate. But some things that, you know, I like to focus on with players is like, you know, setting small goals. So like in this situation, I'd like to have that keeper, you know, like, try to move on from the mistake by focusing on things that they can control. Leave their teammates, you know, leave the opponents, doesn't matter. I like to have players like make lists, start with like your ultimate goal. So a lot of players would be like playing professionally or playing at a very high level, right? And then from there, you know, you set a goal that you can accomplish this year. You set some smaller goals that you can do every week, and you just focus on those things. You focus on the small things that you can control, like, you know, I made a big mistake. Doesn't matter. I'm going to move on this week. I'm going to, you know, show up to team training, you know, 15 minutes early every single time, and, you know, do a little bit of work by myself before the team training starts. And just focus on the things that you can control. Right. I find that like, if you're putting in the work, sometimes it's a lot easier to move on from mistakes rather than, you know, you're just sitting on the couch dwelling on it. Right. Just get back to work.
Literally. again, I think another part of it is obviously we've touched on like the mental side of it and how we can move through it and all that kind of stuff. But I think another thing that a lot of keepers need to keep in mind is hindsight is 2020. So he's now realised that coming out a little bit too late has led to that error. But in that heat of the moment, you have to make that decision. Football's all about making decisions, and in particular, goalkeepers is all about making high pressure decisions. And if he thought in that moment that was the best call, then he's got to back himself. That's what the right call was for him.
Yeah.
You can't go back and then be like, oh, actually, I would do this, because again, hindsight's 2020. But again, it's another learning point. He'll now know a little bit more that, oh, when I come off my line, I might not be as quick as I thought I was. So I need to now work on that training, and then also
take that into account. Yeah, for sure. Like, I think, I like, apart from like the mental side of the game, one of the things I talk most about is like decision making. And it, decision making as a goalkeeper is obviously, quite different. But even though like I talk about decision making, a lot of the time I think like our decisions on the field, there's never any time to like stop and think about things. And like learning to make decisions quickly, you do that at training, and then in games, you have to just trust yourself and, make those trust your instincts, right? Like, one thing I say to a lot of keepers is like, if you think you should come out, go out, right? Like, if you think you should come out, the last thing I want to see you do is just stand, in your 6-yard box and just wait. Like, I would rather have you come out a couple times when it's not a good decision and you can learn from that, rather than you just, be afraid to never leave your box, right? I want that keeper who's going to take initiative. And, if it doesn't work out sometimes, it doesn't work out sometimes. And that's,
exactly.
That's just kind of, it is what it is, right?
Especially as a young keeper. I mean, obviously when you get to the older levels of play, you're more experienced and you make better decisions more often, just because you've made those mistakes when you were younger. Like, keepers are only, like, the professional goalkeepers are only so good at making decisions. Like, let's say Alisson, Emerson, Neuer are coming out. Because I'm sure Neuer has a whole highlight reel of bloopers when he was younger, sweeping high.
Even from when he was, playing with Bayern Munich in Germany, he's made plenty of mistakes, but he's been there for, I don't know how many years now. Feel like he's been there forever, right? Like, I feel like he's been the keeper since I was like 10. Probably has been, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. Like, like a younger keeper will only become, and especially like, I think that like if you're 14, 15, even like 16 sometimes, like, I don't think you've played in a game that actually matters yet, right? What actually matters is the improvements that you've made. Like, no coach is going to like, look at you when you're trying to sign a professional contract at 18 or 20 or whatever, or just play in college or play at a high level. Right. And they're not going to be looking at the player you were when you were 60. They'll be looking at the player you are now. Right. So make all the mistakes you want, as long as you're, improving and developing. That's what actually matters.
Exactly.
And that's in your control, right? You can't always control whether, mistakes happen. You can't always control whether you win games or, you win that final, or you can't say, I'm going to make 100 saves this game or this season or whatever it is. Right. All of that stuff depends on so many different factors, but improvement, is one thing that you do have control over your own development. 100%. Right. So yeah, anything else?
I don't think so. Again, I think it's just, as a goalkeeper coach, I say this all the time, like, just don't let the errors define you. It's so much easier said than done, but every time you make an error, you've learned something very valuable from it. You always learn more from your failures than your successes. So it's so easy now as a almost 24-year-old for me to say, oh, it's fine, you're young. Because to them, it's the end of the world. But it isn't the end of the world. You will learn from it and you'll come back stronger because of it.
100%.
So I think that's the end part I would always say about this kind of situation.
Yeah. I mean, young players always, if you haven't had as many experiences, right, everyone feels like more extreme. But as you have more experiences, you realize that, one bad game when you've played hundreds is nothing.
Exactly.
You know, even 10 bad games is not that important when you kind of like zoom out and look at the big picture. All right. Well, I think that's where we'll wrap up this episode. I'll put links to our social media in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.